That's pure automotive joy. I'm Peter, the owner of Muscle Car Jr. It started as a hobby, then I started posting about it. Before I knew it, I built a business restoring muscle cars on Facebook Marketplace and a community of car lovers on Instagram. Today, new customers send me WhatsApp messages from all over. Not bad for a hobby.
Learn how Meta helps over 35 million American businesses, like Peter's, grow at meta.com/community.
Few things are as uplifting as the greatest moments in sports. And nothing brings us together quite like Team USA at the Olympic Winter Games. From NBC Universal's iconic storytelling to the innovative technology across Xfinity and Peacock, Comcast brings the Olympic Games home to America, sharing every moment with millions. When Team USA steps onto the world stage, we're not just watching, we're cheering together. This winter, we're all on the same team. Comcast, proud partner of Team USA.
Hey everybody. This week we had a really exciting conversation with Shae Worthy that I can't wait for you guys to hear. But before we get into it, here's your spoiler warning. Today we're just covering the first 5 books and the first 2 seasons of the TV series. So if you haven't read Heroes of Olympus or Trials of Apollo or the rest of the Ryanverse, this episode, you're safe. All right, enjoy the episode.
Welcome back to Monster Donuts, a literary and historical deep dive into the Percy Jackson series and all of its following spin-offs. I'm Emily, a classic scholar-ish.
And I'm Phoebe, a dramaturg and story consultant. And today we are joined by the executive story editor on Season 2 and co-producer on Season 3 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. It is Shae Worthy here with us today. Welcome, Shae.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Like, I know I have complimented your work on Season 2 of 1,000 times. We started this call by doing it, but I am going to do it again because it is genuinely so phenomenal. Like, what an insane television debut. Like, it's actually crazy.
It's a good debut. It's a good debut. I've mentioned on other pods that, you know, I've been writing for TV for 4 years now, but this is the first episode of television that I've written that's actually been produced. So it was going from pretty sort of intimate, smaller shows to a show that's as vast as Percy and a show that I grew up with, or a book that I grew up with as well. It's been a real honor and a joy to get to work on it and now to have it be shared with the world.
I so wish that you had been at the early screening they did of 204 in New York.
I can only imagine.
The audience reaction was because the audience was mainly like middle schoolers and high schoolers. It was like super high energy, a lot of like talking, cheering, laughing. And like the scream that was let out when Thalia walked on screen was like Avengers Endgame levels of energy coming out of there.
Good.
My favorite part of it though was at the end, like the silence that came during the Scylla and Charybdis scene, because the entire episode, these kids had been like bouncing off the walls, like shouting, talking, laughing. And as soon as that scene started, they all like fully locked in and like the whole crowd just went like so silent. Like you could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was so focused. And I was like, oh, the power of Shae Worthy.
I really am envious that I didn't get to experience that. I experienced the episode with my family, actually, because it came out Christmas Eve. So I was with my family, and that was really great. But to get to watch it with book lovers would have been really cool. But that's really heartening to hear. That's very heartening to hear.
I think they should do theatrical releases of all of these episodes.
Yes, please.
Periodically.
Yes, please.
They're so good on a big screen with surround sound.
And with like an extremely enthusiastic teenage audience. It's really...
But also to all of the work that's going on with Eric Henry and his entire team, it's so cinematic and it's really produced like a number of movies. You know, getting to go up to set for my episode, I was like, this is the Ironclad looked, you know, sea ready. Like it was everything was so at such a scale. And I think getting to see that up on a big screen would be so incredible for all of the episodes. So that's cool. That's something to think about. I don't know what the reality of it all is.
Disney just has to get in touch with us podcasters. We'll organize New York screenings.
And I'll fly out. I'm from New York. That's a kind of a dream. So.
Taking you all the way to the beginning of your Percy Jackson journey, though, you started off as a fan of the books, right? Like, you grew up with them. Because Phoebe and I as well, we're sort of in that generation, I think, that actually were the same age as Percy when we were reading them.
Yeah. I think I was a little bit older than Percy, but I was so enamored with Greek mythology that when the series, it was like, I need to know everything about it. And there was so much about the books that felt different than other coming of age sort of magical world books. I think for one, Percy's so funny, and I'm so accustomed to the main character and the chosen one being such an every person that they're sort of devoid kind of a personality or a sense of humor. It's maybe flattening it too much, but Percy had such immediate personality. I knew who this kid was. I wanted to be his friend in school. I liked him. He was funny. It was all taking place in New York, so I knew all of his reference points. And I mean, I keep calling it a chosen one story, but as we know, like, he isn't the chosen one. And so another immediate, not immediate because it takes a few books to get there, but it takes all of the books to get there, but it's just such a different type of story. And I think it was and continues to be a sort of interesting new way into these Greek myths that I loved, and rewriting those stories and continuing to rewrite those stories with the series to some extent. So yeah, I was just sort of fascinated by all of it. And yeah, it was just a really fun and easy book series to get sucked into.
Yeah, and Sea of Monsters too, I think. That's like the first book where it starts coming in that, like, Percy, you're not the main character anymore. It's Clarissa's quest, right?
Yeah, it's really unusual and really cool.
Yeah, we love that. I think in Titan's Curse too, like, when we were talking about the books, those were like the things that kept coming up. Were like, Sea of Monsters is actually about Clarisse, and Titan's Curse was actually about Thalia.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask as well, like, so obviously growing up with the books, now coming into write, like, was there anything in particular about the book Sea of Monsters that stuck with you?
Not really. Sea of Monsters is the book where I felt a divorce for me and Annabeth. In terms of, I felt very Annabeth. Sea of Monsters was weirdly the book where I was like, maybe I'm less Annabeth than I think.
Oh,
interesting.
And so that was that was like my big fascination point coming into the Sea of Monsters, was like, what were we going to do with Annabeth? And the thing that I didn't anticipate being a big, how do I put this? Something that doesn't really happen in the books is that we meet Thalia super early. And that was a thing where it's like, I have very strong feelings about Thalia, but I didn't think entering the room that I was going to get to explore that character. So that was an exciting thing. The sort of 3 female leads of Sea of Monsters are really exciting to me, because Annabeth was the character that I related to most for a long time. Clarisse is the character that I relate to the least in the books, which makes her very fun to write. And Thalia is sort of the character that I want to be when I grow up. And so it was like, they're all like really juicy character viewpoints to jump into, and very varied. Yeah. And I don't think that I knew until I was really in it and in the room how much I was going to get to explore all 3 in my episode. Yeah. Like, I couldn't have known that. And that was one of the things that I feel really fortunate about. I think, yeah, I had lots of thoughts about where things were going to go before that first day. But then the first day, there was a lot of refocusing of my energies, which was really exciting and fun. But yeah, I don't know. I'm bad at answering questions in a direct way.
No, this is great. I have one very specific follow-up question, which is, what about Sea of Monsters Annabeth did you not like vibe with?
It was not that I didn't vibe with her. It was the fatal flaw moment that surprised me. Her fatal flaw really surprised me, and I didn't relate to it.
Interesting.
And so it was the moment where I was like, oh, this character is different than me in more than I want her to be. And now this is getting a little bit into further books. I'm not going to really go far, but I think there are other characters as the series continues that I started to feel like a real strong connection to. So it was fine. But I really, book 1, I was like, oh, I'm Annabeth. And book 2, I was like, maybe I'm not Annabeth. Like, or maybe like, you know, like most characters are, we have shared DNA, but there are also places where we're very different in the way that we deal with things. Yeah. So yeah, that's the moment. I remember reading it and being like, like, this feels different than the character that I thought.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a like a big moment for me in my mind.
I will say spoilers are totally on the table if you do want to say who those characters are.
Nico.
Okay, yeah.
Nico.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I get this kid. And yeah, the reason why I didn't want to say more is because I get afraid of blending book lore and show lore. And so obviously I want to avoid talking too much about 3. But Nico is a character that I really, really felt attached to.
Mm-hmm. Same. That's me as a little boy.
I think for me it was always Annabeth. And even the Fatal Flaw was like that. Yeah, unfortunately, that's me.
But I think as a writer, I think it actually it's good. Like, it's good to have places where my line between the character and me are very separate. I think it makes it easier to write. You get a little less personal about it, I think. And I still am so much Annabeth. It's just there are definite sort of places where we go different ways.
Yeah. Okay, I want to dig into some specific stuff from episode 4, starting with one of our 3 leading ladies, Thalia, because this is our first on-screen appearance of her, which means that so much of the audience's first understanding of her as a person exists in your hands. So yes. I'm curious, how did you find her voice, her attitude, and like what role you wanted her to play in these flashbacks?
Oh, there's so much to say there. There's a line in the script that I think stayed in the whole time. It's just an action line, so you don't hear it in dialogue. But it's essentially everything about her felt impossible. Like, that was to me she has to feel like she walks into a room and you feel safe. A little bit scared, but like, this is the person who can lead me through an impossible thing. And I think so that's thing 1 that I'm trying to achieve. I think thing 2 is making sure she still feels like a human being and not like, for lack of a better word, a god. Like she still has to feel like flesh and vulnerable and, you know, all of the complicated things that you want in a character to be excited to watch and for an actor to get to play. Because, as probably goes without saying, but we hadn't cast Thalia when I was writing Thalia, so it really was a blank page in a way that was simultaneously exciting but also a little bit nerve-wracking. And I think we got to do all of that. Her entrance, which is another thing, because that's pretty consistent from the page to execution, was just like, she's got to come in like a superhero. Like, that's the energy that she's got to come in with. And that felt important, but because we got so much real estate with her, because in the initial versions, the very, very early versions of the episode, the Thalia stuff there was less of it, but it was more stretched out. It was kind of all existing around the warehouse escape of getting saving Annabeth from the warehouse. So all of the stuff of the meeting in the sewer to going to the Seder hideout, all of that stuff came a little bit later. And so once there was more real estate to sort of explore with her, then we got to sort of see some variations, get to see a little bit of her vulnerability around camp and around gods and about this world, and getting to think about how she is different than Luke in this way, or in what ways she is different than Luke. Was really important. We spent a lot of time on that. And there was a lot to make sure was checked off with the character. And I think, I feel really good about where we landed with pretty much everything. And I think a lot of it also comes down to Tamara. Like, she is Thalia. Like, she is Thalia. I can't imagine anyone else being able to bring the character to life in the way that she does. It just, you believe it immediately. I know she is immediately on her face. Yeah, there's lines and but it's like immediately that we pull in and I'm like, oh, I know who this person is. Another thing we talked about in the room, and this is larger than my episode, this is just a sort of constant conversation we were having about really the end of the season and Percy's anxieties around this character, was how to make her feel like this weird tightrope of she could be a threat, but also for one of our main characters, is home. And how do you balance that? And again, Tamara just does it. Like, it's just there. She's strong-willed, she's passionate, she's stubborn, and that makes her a little bit dangerous, but it's also the reason why you feel safe with her if she's on your side. And I think that all of that, was really helpful in thinking about how to sort of build this character, not, fresh from clay, we are inheriting her, but how to build the character. And then I had a third thought that I'm losing now about Thalia and the finale. Oh, that. The sort of getting to see the moment before, like, you just get to see so much more of her. And in the back end, because obviously, book 3, it's lots of Thalia, but there's so much real estate that we got with this character in season 2 that we got to do a lot, to have it be that when we pick up with her in 3, she's not a stranger to us. We really feel a strong connection to the character. I do.
Yeah. I love that you're talking about this like line that you have to walk. Because we've talked a lot about like the myth of Thalia that is built throughout this entire series up until she shows up. Even after she shows up, I feel like, in the books. But I feel like your episode, your flashbacks, are a big part of what brings her a little bit down to earth for us, while keeping her sort of living in that like mythical space. But, for up until that moment, she has been just like what people say about her, the stories people tell.
Totally.
There's something too about the way the flashbacks are layered into the episode that also I feel like really just brings it out in such a way that I still can't really put my finger on it, which I think is a testament to a beautifully complex piece of writing. But like, I just love that, to the point that I was like jaw drop shocked when I was listening to your episode with Seaweed Brain when you said you don't like flashbacks. I was like, but they were so beautiful. And they were so like expertly handled to me. Just like all of these different, like, I think getting to watch Thalia through baby Annabeth's eyes, I think plays a huge role in that too, of just like, you get to see her on a pedestal, but like in a way where she's still, on Earth.
Absolutely. I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately in terms of something else that I'm writing, but I used to work in animation. I worked in animation for 4 years before writing, and there was a director that I got to work with a little bit there, Justin Thompson, who was the director to the second Spider-Verse. And something he said that really stuck with me about animation is he said, people often think, animation's cool because you can do whatever you want. But what it really should be about is the opportunity to externalize a character's internal world in any way that you see fit. You can really help an audience to see the world through their eyes. And I think one of the ways in which the flashbacks work for me is that they're so much through young Annabeth's perspective in a very Annabeth episode. And so there's something, and I just was rewatching 8, there's something that's so cool about just literally like from almost like a camera standpoint, like looking up at Thalia versus more or less looking in her eyes, and what that does. I think the flashbacks offer an opportunity to tell a version of events that are colored in a way that's useful. But I don't really like writing flashbacks. The other thing that I think made them work for me is that the flashbacks are a riddle in addition to being an FYI. Like, that's why they usually don't work for me. They feel like FYIs. Like, this is what it was like in the past, just so you know. And these flashbacks sort of open with a question. Like, you don't know why you're getting these flashbacks until the end. And I love a riddle. I love a sort of getting puzzle pieces and trying to put it together before the show does for you. That's one of the ways that it just makes me an active audience member. So I personally enjoy watching it. And that's another way in which writing the flashbacks was useful to me, is that it's a riddle, and it's really clearly handing the baton to the front story. Whenever we cut from a flashback to the front story, it really feels like we're not cutting out just because it's a cool place to cut. We're cutting out because it makes sense to cut there, and because it's now giving us something. It's really handing the ball to the front story in a way that feels momentous. And that's, to me, one of the one of the ways to make sure that a flashback is working for me.
Yeah.
I'm a certified flashback overuser, so
I don't mind them outside of TV, but in TV, just like, you're cheating. Or I feel like I can stop watching now. Like it sort of feels, it can feel like a commercial break to me sometimes. I don't know. I do have maybe not the best attention span, but I like it all to feel propulsive. And especially to what we were saying, I don't know if we were on the mic or off the mic, but the episodes are tight.
Yeah.
These are tight episodes. And so you want to make sure that you're really squeezing everything you can out of your runtime, and that there isn't, just like cutting back to cut back, but, it really feeling charged up.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, I mean, you can't say anything on this right now, but I feel like flashbacks have become such a part of the language of the show to this point because we had them throughout season 1, had them throughout season 2, and like my brain is like, and we'll have them every season for the end of time. So I don't know. I'm just very curious how flashbacks are going to end up staying a part of the language of the show.
That's so funny because you're right. And for some reason, I've always thought about my episode as the first flashback episode, but it's not. It's not at all. That's so, maybe it was the first in season 2?
It is the first in season 2.
Yeah. In season 1, they didn't bump me at all, because in season 1, they felt, because it's so propulsive, you actually need to be like, you did miss some things. Like, you actually did miss some pretty important things, both on a plot level or sometimes on a character level. Like, I remember the Percy in the pool stuff. Like, that stuff is one of the, are some of the things that stay with me the most from season 1.
That was also episode 4, right?
It was.
Oh.
I think that was the opening of episode 4.
Was. And that to me, those, like, especially because I don't know how many times we cut back to that. I think we start there, maybe we get another nugget of it. So those don't bump me as much. It's sort of like when you keep going back to the pool of the flashbacks, that's when I'm like, you got to earn that.
Right.
But yeah, I think I think you are not wrong to think that the grammar of the show is established, and we also. I think that we also, in that grammar, have established a way to do flashbacks that, to me, pass the test. Mm-hmm. So I no longer am nervous about flashbacks on Percy Jackson and the Olympians, because I think we all know how we like to see them done. But yeah, we see them throughout season 2. We, in ways that... The other thing that the flashbacks, I think, are really makes them juicy is the way that they complicate things. Yeah. Again, like, just not the FYI, but the, like, everything to do with Thalia and her father. Like, seeing, again, puzzle piece. We're not getting the whole picture yet. All of that feels really compelling and exciting, and yeah.
Staying in these flashbacks a bit more, I don't want the entire episode to be us talking about flashbacks, but I did love them very much. These are obviously centered around Annabeth and her relationships with Thalia and Luke, but I think they're also a large part of our introduction to Thalia and Luke's relationship, which is obviously essential to the end of this season and where we're heading in season 3, and to our questioning of where she really stands. And so how do you conceptualize Thalia and Luke's relationship? Like, can you speak on finding what felt true to their dynamic in these flashbacks? The answer is no, Phoebe.
Here's what I'll say. I'm going to give a very diplomatic answer. I think that we all, when we read these books, have different versions of the characters in our heads, and sometimes very different versions of, interpersonal dynamics, etc. I think that on the show, you spend a lot of time syncing up about where the interpersonal dynamics lie, etc. I think the reason why I'm sort of avoidant when talking about Luke and Thalia is that I like the fact that we saw a glimpse into it, and I like the fact that we will see more of it in season 3.
Yeah.
But I think it is useful that it is a glimpse in season 2. We talked a lot about it. We talked a lot about, because I think that there was just about like what their family dynamic feels like, about the fact, and Luke, I think, says this, that like Annabeth entered, not in my episode, but like Annabeth entered an established dynamic. She also entered it as a pretty young kid. So there were things that they didn't need to let her know about. They come from, yes, their personal relationships and their personal histories are driving the relationship to the world of the gods. How much specifically are they telling, an 8-year-old? And because we're seeing this glimpse, how varied are, like, they both have horror stories. Like, they both have these pretty tragic relationships to their parents, and we will learn more about how they are different, even though they are both tragic, that they are different.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to say more.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit too season 3 headed. But yeah, I've gotten to hear some feedback about that scene and the dynamic and the cult half-blood line, and all of that stuff is right and good, and I'm happy it's being responded to the way that it's being responded to. And also, because we talked about it so much, there's much more there, and we get to see it. And so I think I'm just excited for people to get to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you teed it up.
Yeah.
Well, on the topic of Luke, then.
Sure.
I've told you before, we're big Luke fans here. We spoke about this at the premiere, and there was a point in our conversation where we were talking about love for Luke in the writer's room, and you said that you have to love Luke because Annabeth loves Luke. So I'm starting a Luke lover meeting right now. Luke lover meeting commencing. What do you love about Luke? What do you think is key to the balancing act of making sure that your audience loves Luke while allowing him to be the antagonist that he is?
It's a huge question, and Luke's argument feels more and more potent with every passing day. I think that he is using his eyes and his ears and his heart to look around not only his own life, but the lives of young campers who have not been claimed, who go to his cabin when they haven't been. And he sees a lot of pain, and he sees a world that doesn't make sense. And he sees people putting these gods on pedestals, and what are they doing for us? Like, how are they actually making our lives better? And I think with our 2026 gazes around these gods and the stories of them, and our more complicated understanding of their histories and their antics and their violence, it feels even easier to get on board. When I was reading these books as a middle schooler, however old I was, it was sort of like, the Greek gods are good. Yeah. They're good. Like, they're mostly good. Like, that's like, why would you want to challenge that? And now I think, again, with studying the Greek myths, but also I think just in the world, the idea of like just blindly pedestaling people who've always been on those pedestals, so we love them, right? To question that and to be given an outlet for that questioning, it all makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And I think we have one writer in the room who is the voice of Luke is right. How do we make him not? Essentially, he's sort of this constant voice of like, he's right. He's completely right. And I think we have had to do some work to make sure that Luke can be right and also not have all the information. And that's my way. That's the way that Luke makes sense to me, is that he is all of his grievances are righteous, but a bad actor preyed on a grieving young man, and again, feeling very relatable, and has now pulled him into a side which feels like the only other side. To Luke, it's kind of the only other option. Yeah. He doesn't have Thalia to set off with anymore, and just kind of do their own thing. It sort of is like, this world is being Team Half-Blood, being alone, or trying to make a change for, other people who are in your position. And so with this false binary, he's making the best choice he can with the information that he has. And I think that is a really easy character to root for.
I think so.
He does do some things to Percy.
Yeah, he does.
That's fine.
He does do some things to Percy that rewatching, I was like, oh, I know this is happening, and I still like gasped. But yeah, I think in the world of anti-heroes, anti-villains, all of it, I think Luke is high on the list of characters that it's easy to understand how he came to be what he is, and that he really, and that's the other cool thing about season 2 is the Allison Sims of it all.
Yes.
I think Allison Sims also creates this sort of like, this is worst case scenario. Like Luke actually kind of, it allows you to see that his version of toppling this dynasty looks very different and is one that is married to, again, I think Luke really wants to make the world a better place for young demigods. Mm-hmm. And not just the people that are on his side. Like, that would be good if everybody would join his side. But I think there is a cynicism that other people on his team have, and a sort of coldness and a violence that he has not fully subscribed yet to that way of leading. Yeah. I could talk about, yeah. So.
We do talk about Luke.
No, and Allison.
Yeah.
No, we spent a lot of time digging into like the dynamic between Luke and Allison, and the way that Luke is attempting to lead. Especially, I mean, we'll get into it in a second because this is one of my questions for you. But like the theme of leadership in this season, and especially this episode.
Yeah.
Like how you lead is very interesting to me. But that's a question for 2 questions from now. Before we get into that, just to leave flashback land behind us, we can't have you on this podcast without thanking you for the Monster Donut scene.
Okay. I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Daphne Olive pitched that. So really it's all kudos to her. But I think, there had to be a nod to Monster Donuts. Right. There had to be.
For us, of course. For us specifically.
Of course.
But no, I think for the invention of this bracelet is what I really want to compliment you on, because we have read like a million different things into it, and it is just like such a sweet and heartbreaking and beautiful moment between Luke and Annabeth, and then a symbol for Annabeth throughout this episode, and eventually for Tyson later on. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, this bracelet has just become so many things to us throughout this season. And maybe we're like keeping a specific eye on it because we're Monster Donut. But like it sort of started to us, it moved from like originating in this sort of promise from Luke to Annabeth that is sort of broken, but then by the end of this season has become this sort of symbol of hope and genuine protection and just 100 different things. So I'd love to hear you weigh in on this conversation. Like what does the Monster Donut bracelet mean to you? What is the significance that it carries this season in your mind?
I hope this doesn't break your mythology of the Monster Donut bracelet. Break it. But the bracelet came first. Mm-hmm. And then came Monster Donuts.
Right.
I've mentioned this on Seaweed Brain, but it was a part of a larger pitch, and it was the part of the pitch that stayed. Everything else got lost. And I think it was just a shape that was readily understandable for a shape of an episode, and a shape of an episode that is, to me, and this was not the case when I set out to write the episode, but it's one of the things the episode is so much about is anxiety. And I think that the smallness and the plasticness of this item that can then take on such gargantuan, symbolism for a character, that it sort of sends her into like this panic attack mode for much of the episode. Felt very true and very right and very good. I think it's starting off as, when I say starting off, I mean when Luke gives it to Annabeth, it also kicking off this idea of little white lies, was little white lies that become huge, massive disasters. Yeah. Was really useful as well. To your point, it really represents a lot in the episode. So there's the anxiety of it all, there's a little white lie of it all, there's there was a version of the episode where they did this, it's not an old wives' tale. It's like one of those, like, for want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, do you know this sort of?
I don't think I do.
Not the specific one.
See if I can find it. It's for want of a nail is what it's called, and it's this proverb I'm reading now from Google about how a very insignificant thing can become a very large thing. Yeah. And I think outside of the shape of Annabeth's flashback, it's representing that, and also it representing the shape of 4, which is we're trying to do all of the best right things, but it could still end in a disaster. It also represents the prophecy. Like, it is the reason why Annabeth is really going into this sort of fugue mode for some of the episode, is that she understands that she cannot plan for the little thing that could potentially explode this, that could potentially harm her friend, that could potentially take down Olympus. And it's a really impossible thing to hold for someone who has been able to think far into the future for her whole life and effectively. And so I think it was useful that it held a lot. The symbol of it is really kind of cool, and that it comes up in future episodes as well, because again, it was one of the things that was sort of purely invented for the show. Yeah. And it holds a lot. It holds a lot.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear you say that it's anxiety, because I'd never like put that exact word to it, but now that you said that, I'm like, duh. It is so much about what this episode does kind of circle. It's like, I think when we were covering as well, Phoebe said, like, what a great choice to put an episode all about choice right after being told that there's a prophecy that is going to hinge on a major choice for Percy.
Yeah.
And also what you were just talking about reminds me of one of my favorite moments in the episode that I wanted to ask you about. It's not even really a question. It's more just me as a writer wanting to give you some flowers for this, but like specifically the fact that so much of this episode is centering around Annabeth and choice, and then you've managed in such a beautiful way, not once but twice, to do something that I just feel is like such a cool craft thing, where you can have a character say the exact worst possible thing to another character when they don't mean it that way, and in any other circumstance it wouldn't come off that way. But I'm specifically thinking about the moment between Percy and Annabeth where they're just talking about Scylla and Charybdis, and Annabeth has been agonizing this whole episode about making the wrong choice. At times she felt she made the wrong choices, and then Percy says to her, well, I trust you because it's your choice. Yeah. In a moment that in any other script, in any other context in this show would be comforting to her, would be affirming to her. And in this moment just it sends her just deeper and deeper in. And there's another moment a little later in the episode where Percy does a similar thing to Clarice. Yeah. Where it's at the beginning of their conversation, but where she's asking him for advice on her quest, and he says to her, well, I would have died without my friends, not knowing that is what Clarice has been agonizing about this whole time.
Totally.
And so I just, first of all, just want to say, mwah, incredible work. But
thank you.
I guess my question in it is, how do you think about crafting like a scene and dialogue?
What a fun question. First of all, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I'm realizing that I sort of have glossed over the big and obvious choice in the episode about Scylla and Charybdis, right. Which was also a fun writer's room discussion, was about what they were going to do and how they got there, because that took sometimes I wish, and I guess that's what we get to do here. Like, sometimes I think there are things that feel like the writers probably like worked really hard to get that, and it was like really fast. And then there are other things that probably feel like that was super simple, and it's like, it took us weeks. But I'm going to step back and try to speak to your craft question, because I haven't gotten a craft question in so long. And I'm trying to, I have this philosophy of writing that maybe will answer the question. I don't know. We'll see. And that is that I think that there are writers who predominantly write like writers who predominantly write like directors, and writers who predominantly write like actors. And I find, speaking in huge strokes, and again, people can be versions of this, 80% of this, 40% of that. But I find that writers that write like writers are very sort of craft-centric, structure-centric, and also personality-wise, they tend to be the most tortured writer types, I find. Writers who write like directors are really good at what they say is like trailer moments. Yeah. What's going to be really exciting to the eye? Personality-wise, they tend to be the most confident, sometimes overconfident. And then writers who write like actors tend to be really good at dialogue, things that are fun for actors to play. And they tend to be, I find, like generators, because actors know that something is bad for a long time before it's good. Like that's what theater is like it's gonna suck until it's good. And so they're not afraid of the blank page, and they'll just, scratch at it and scratch at it and scratch at it. And I think I'm the last one. So for me, the craft comes down to, especially once the episode is beated out, B-E-A-T-D, like we know what the scenes are going to be and we know the general shape of it. It's just kind of let the actor character come in and like see what feels true and see what feels good. So a lot of that sort of ironic, playful stuff with the Percy of it all, that just felt right. It just felt like a nice way also of sort of twisting the Percy as therapist. That like it's not like, sometimes he's getting a little wrong too. Like he is on a journey as a hero in all ways, but a lot of that just felt really good and really right. And it speaks to, for all of the cast characters, Walker and Leah and Dior, etc. Like, okay, I know this. I know your version of these characters, and so my goal is always to write the thing that feels both true and surprising. And I think if I'm doing that, actors are excited to play that. And if actors are excited to play it, audiences are excited to watch it. That's my rule of thumb. And that's led me, well, up until now. So I'll keep doing it until it ever leads me astray. But that's really my way in, once it's actually about what's on the page, is just true and surprising, true and surprising. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. I do want to come back to this topic that I teased and then didn't get into, which was the leadership of it all. That we have these 3 central female characters in this episode, and it becomes sort of this discussion of like how they are handling responsibility and like the weight of the people that they care about relying on them, with Annabeth, Clarice, Thalia. And I think this is less a question as well, but but was this conversation around leadership, because it did end up becoming like something that we returned to over and over and over again. Well, after this episode, it was like kind of at the core of like our conversations around this season in some ways. But is this at the core of your conception of this episode, I guess? Is this something that lined itself up so beautifully through the magic of characters speaking to you? Is this something that, because I feel like it does eventually, it's a part of Percy and Luke's story as well, but so much of it lives in this episode.
The reason why I kept smiling while you asked that question is because that is such a big question for 3. And you're right, it becomes increasingly a thing for 2, but it's we had a lot of conversations about it for 3. For 2, I think that the big word for me was fear and what we do to overcome it. And I think that leadership comes into play in the wake of that, especially in relationship, because we've already talked a little bit about Annabeth and how she's sort of having this executive dysfunction moment. I think for Clarice, it's interesting because her fear is no longer something that she can hold on her own. She is now a leader. And she's in a very different way than she has been at camp, where she is just a bully.
Yeah.
And I think that we get to see her fairly elegantly, with the circumstances in mind, transition into a different type of leadership. Because I think that Clarice at camp would have been like, we got to break some eggs. And Clarice on the ship with guys that she just met, like met sort of relatively recently, is like, hears that from Percy and is like, I don't know if I can do that anymore. I've made them a promise. I believe in them and me. I think it's also like another interesting sort of shape of leadership is that it's not in the way that her father would want her to be, leadership that is her-centered. It's not like, as long as I'm good, You know, it gets done. It's a very different shape. I say all of this to say it wasn't an episode-centric focus for me, but the idea of what Clarice as a leader looks like was very important. And I think it's right and interesting, especially in relationship to the next 4 episodes, and especially the last few episodes. It is a theme that I think is our illustrious showrunner often says theme will out. His philosophy is like break the story and it will tell you what the theme is. And so he would be very in line with this, with your thinking of like, well, leadership is a theme. Like it was like, maybe you didn't know it when you started off, but it is, you know, something that we can so clearly track with all of these characters. But to me, I would say front of mind, I think I was only really thinking about it in relationship to Clarice.
Cool.
One of our patrons submitted a question that we wanted to ask you. Shout out to Bad Luck, who wanted to know, you mentioned at the beginning that this is the first script that you've actually seen go fully into production of yours. And they wanted to know, has now kind of being part of that process influenced you as a writer moving forward and how you're approaching not just Percy scripts, but also like just general writing?
I think part of my job as a writer is to be a sponge and a thief. And I would be wasting my time if I didn't let every bit of this experience, every writer that I get to learn from absorb into the way that I think. And Craig in particular is someone who I have a little Craig in my brain now that I pull down for projects that I work on that are not related to Percy. Craig's ability to tell his like mind around like, there's a better word for this, but I think about like war plot. I don't know. It's like the machinations that he has these characters run are so interesting and convoluted and smart. You know, my way in is, as I've said, like emotion and character, and he marries all of that with really cool plot prestidigitation that is something that I'm always trying to borrow from moving forward. I think the entire team we all have different superpowers. And so I'm trying to be a rogue and like borrow a little bit from everybody. And it's been incredibly useful, from the actual execution of what it looks like to shape a Percy episode. And now so that's helpful moving forward, where I'll sometimes say like, you know, that's not Percy Jackson and the Olympians. That might be a good idea, but that's not a Percy Jackson and the Olympians idea. To also getting the show made, like all the stuff outside of the writing, getting it inside into production, getting to go to set for my episode, getting to be boots on the ground with direction choices, getting to I got to give input. I should have worn the pants because I realized that Allison, like, there were a few things that I wore to the office that Craig was like, send me a link. He's like, that is right for this show. And so I got to make a deck of like basically like a crony deck of like how I think the cronies might dress, like what they would wear, what kids would wear on the journey. I had these very multi-pocketed, like wide leg, like a perfect blend of like Gen Z, but also utilitarian. That Allison Sims wears very similar pants. And the Hermes bag is a bag that I wore to work. And he was like, that's going to be the Hermes bag. And and so it's my version is much less cool than what they created. But like all of that, like the whole enchilada from script into production was casting. Like, I remember seeing Daniel's tape for Tyson and thinking like, well, no one's going to beat that. Like, it was just like, you know, like all of that stuff is really great to be a part of and is going to be helpful to me. It already has been in terms of getting to work on season 3 and sort of being able to slip into the world very easily, but also in my own work as well. It's been very useful.
Speaking of season 3, you posted you were in Vancouver recently. Such a weighty season, one might say. Such a highly anticipated. Did you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders?
I have felt the weight. I have gone and felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. It was pretty cool. I think that book 3 and book 2 have completely different challenges in adaptation. And it was just it was a completely different group of questions. I wish I remembered what the questions I asked when I first got into the room on season 2 were, because I know what they were for season 3. But yeah, I was just asking sort of different questions about what I think the heavy lifts are going to be, what I think the tricky things are going to be, what the things are that we have to pay off. Like, it was just a sort of very different sort of thing, but it looks, I think I'm allowed to say that it looks good. I think I'm allowed to say that. Yeah. I just getting to be, and I got to see a number of sets, and it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. It all looks so good, and I'm really excited for the world to see it. It's really good stuff. It's really cool. And because for season 2, I only got to see really my stuff. And to get to see, like, when I say it all looks really good, I'm talking about things that I didn't write, things that I still got to witness, and it's really beautiful. And everyone that that we know is doing amazing work, but there also are new additions to the cast that are doing incredible work as well. And yeah, the directors, everybody is just firing on all cylinders. So I'm really excited for the world to get to experience 3.
I can't wait. And hopefully to drag you back here and pick your brain a bit more.
Right.
I would love to. It would be really fun to talk about 2 versus 3. Yeah. Like, I can't do that with you now, but it's like I'm chomping at the bit too. It was really fun to get to do the same show and the same books, and also, there are very different things to think about. And I do love to get to compare and contrast. So that would be a fun ride.
Okay, final question for you is a question that we ask at the end of every episode, which is that we design a bead, like a Camp Half-Blood end of summer bead, based on the subject of the episode. So, if you were to design a bead to go on your necklace based on your experience of either episode 4 specifically or just season 2 in general, whether it's like about the episode itself or about the creation of it, what would you choose to put on it?
Clasped hands.
Oh.
For sure. I think one of the things that is so important to me about these books, and one of the things that I find to be really powerful in getting to be a part of the team adapting them, is that I think we're in a moment of hyper individualism the way we've never seen it before. And I think a lot of chosen one stories do have sometimes large, sometimes smaller strain of that running through it. And I think these books, these characters, this episode is so much about how much you can't do on your own, and how that's not a bad thing. And the Percy Annabeth clasping hands reversal was one of the things that I was really excited to have in this episode, and that it stayed in this episode, because you never know what's going to stay. And I was really glad that stayed. And it really, again, to speak to the parts of Annabeth that I do really relate to, the feeling of everything is so bad and I have to fix it on my own is one that I understand. And I've learned that that is a demon talking. And the only way to get through is with the people that you care about and who care about you.
Yeah.
And so that has been, to me, one of the central themes of these books that I love and respond to in the series, and getting to work on the show. It's not, you can't take for granted liking and really caring about the people that you get to work with. And I really love this team, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. And it is a team. And yeah, I just can't say enough positive things about getting to be a part of this family and working together with the shared vision of adapting these beloved books in a way that hopefully will remain beloved. And so I would say a bead with clasped hands.
Beautiful. Beautiful answer.
It's funny. I think that's kind of similar to what Dior gave her as an answer, too. Clasp hands around a heart was her answer.
No way! I'm obsessed with that. I did not know that. I saw Dior's clip, but I haven't listened to the whole episode yet. I've seen some clips from it. That makes me so happy. She really killed it.
Oh,
she really killed it.
All right. Thank you so much
for joining.
Thank you. This was so fun. And I'm excited to talk more and when we can.
Right.
Because this is, you guys, you both ask very, very great questions that keep me thinking. And sometimes I can't answer them as fully as I want. And so I am excited to talk more. But thank you for a really wonderful group of questions.
Thank you for your wonderful group of answers.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening to Monster Donut. Next time, would you believe it, another interview. I'm having so much fun with these this season. Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shae, for being incredible. Cannot wait to see what the whole team is cooking up in Vancouver right now. If you are at all interested in getting a heads up of who we may or may not be interviewing, getting opportunities to submit questions, see any bonus content, you can do that on our Patreon. It's just a great way to support us if you're enjoying the pod and in a position to do so. And yeah, you can also get in touch with us on social media. We're at PJOPod across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. And you can also find us on our website or email us at monsterdonutpodcast@gmail.com. And if you have any thoughts, opinions, analysis, responses to anything we've been talking about with Season 2, we're planning on doing a wrap-up episode once we finish up with all of our interviews. And we'd love to either feature your analysis or answer your questions. So those are all the ways to get in touch with us if you are interested to do so. By far the best part about having a podcast is realizing that we are not, in fact, yapping into a void and getting to connect with so many other people who have so many thoughts about this entire franchise. Great thoughts, by the way. So many times I've got an email where I've been like, that's so crazy that I've never even thought about that. That's mind-blowing analysis.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can also, if you want to support the pod but are not in a position to do so monetarily, you can also recommend us to a friend. You can leave a rating or a review, or leave a comment or anything like that. Just helps us out a lot. And again, also helps us keep that conversation going, which is so fun. And also across our social media, you're going to find our link tree with links to our merch shop if you're interested in picking up some merch, as well as the Patreon I mentioned and a coffee too. So, that being said, thank you to our patrons.
Latino Kaya, Patty VCK, Bethany from Public Works, Sydney Fox, Joke, Rihanna Avila Ramirez Arellano, Bronte Lebo, Ethan Not Nakamura, Kels, Mason Bowman, Casey Cassidy, Busy Cat, Natalia, Melissa Rounds, Cake Coffee, Sasha, Alana, Pamela Ion, The Kid on Her Own, Grace Hunker, Kaylee, Mana Munshian, Calamity, Eddie Burns, Sarah Brown, Colby Redfern, Theseus, May, Anna, Christina, Bad Luck, B, Faster, James Alexander, Sloan Mitchell, and Kari. Thank you, as always, for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Few things are as uplifting as the greatest moments in sports. And nothing brings us together quite like Team USA at the Olympic Winter Games. From NBC Universal's iconic storytelling to the innovative technology across Xfinity and Peacock, Comcast brings the Olympic Games home to America, sharing every moment with millions. When Team USA steps onto the world stage, we're not just watching, we're cheering together. This winter, we're all on the same team. Comcast, proud partner of Team USA.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The empty seat. Who is actually just that? An empty chair in your office because you couldn't find someone to fill it. So it just sat there costing you money with all its fancy ergonomic features. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can make it easy to fill that seat with the right candidate. With nearly 60% of businesses finding someone to interview in the first week alone. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post your first job today and get $100 off at linkedin.com/Pandora offer. Terms and conditions apply.